Let's begin this half hour with President Donald Trump ordering top brass at the Pentagon to resume testing of nuclear weapons on something he calls an equal basis. So let's go live now to CBS News national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata. Okay, so Charlie, the president says on an equal basis. What does this mean and how will this take shape?
Well, Reed, let's address that first of all. Equal basis suggesting that other countries are testing nuclear weapons, which just is not the case, aside from North Korea, notably North Korea. Now, the Russians have launched a nuclear-propelled weapon recently and also a nuclear-capable weapon recently. And we don't have to trust the Russians on this one, or the Chinese for that matter on this one. If there are nuclear detonations, there are several ways of monitoring that, including U.S. military intelligence. So there hasn't been any meaningful testing, certainly in the United States, since September of 1992. And the idea that he has instructed the Pentagon to do this with essentially immediate effect, it raised a lot of questions, a lot of head scratching at the sources that I spoke to this morning. And then, of course, this isn't something you just flip a switch on and start testing once again. So it's not within the realm of possibility that something like that could be started. And, you know, the Pentagon is nothing if not a planning and executing organization. But it would be from a dead stop to start nuclear testing with something that was essentially made redundant back in 1992 is no small measure. And the Russians, of course, the Kremlin has come in and said, well, there has been a moratorium, an international moratorium on testing of nuclear weapons. So they're going to have to review their own nuclear testing if the United States is indeed about to start testing nuclear weapons again.
All right, so Charlie, we know you're watching that, but there's also something I know you and I are very curious about. I got to ask you about something Representative Jason Crow had to say about an issue you and I have talked a lot about here on air, the operation involving U.S. military strikes on alleged drug boats. Let's listen to what he had to say, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
You know, what I heard here today was a tactical brief. I heard no strategy, no end game, no assessment of how they are going to end the flow of drugs into the United States, which needs to happen, by the way. Right? We do need to get serious about the flow of drugs, but I heard nothing today that shows how they're actually going to end that. In fact, I have deeper concern leaving this briefing as to whether or not they even have a serious plan to do that. I heard no serious comprehensive plan for addressing drugs in the United States.
No serious comprehensive plan. It sounds like he left with more questions than answers. Any response from the Pentagon?
Not yet, and this is something that you know, I certainly was looking forward to finding out more. I figured, well, certainly the press corps has been left out of any of the intelligence that may be out there that would justify the bombing of these alleged narco terrorists, where the intelligence came from, who's on the boats, what they're carrying, where they're headed, whether all of what's going on is legal within the legal parameters of, you know, military engagement, using U.S. military forces to engage with lethal force. So you can hear the frustration there that they were expecting, and we would have expected that too, because that was a closed-door meeting. We wouldn't have had access to any of that. But just the fact that they have not been given, or they're at least not satisfied with the amount of information and intelligence that they gathered, is very telling. And we're about to step up significantly. They're about to escalate. There's been another attack on a boat that was announced yesterday, four suspected narco-terrorists in the Eastern Pacific. But Reed, you've got the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier and its strike carrier group headed to that region, and that is completely unprecedented and unheard of. And it raises questions as to why you would need an aircraft carrier for drug interdiction operations when you normally would put a carrier in place if you're about to launch airstrikes. And President Trump has said time and again that land strikes are coming next.
Charlie D'Agata, thank you so much.